Hey, what's going on everyone? My name's Wes. Why is that fighter so mid? Find out in today's video. We are going to be covering all 36 subclasses in the Grimm Hollow Player's Guide. Yeah, it's a lot. So, instead of doing a full deep dive where I typically put my slides up on the screen, we are instead just going to be doing like a overview of all of them, not going into full details, or like surface level. Depending on which feature I'm talking about, I will probably dig deeper, because the more I read this book, I believe that this book replaces this book, and you're supposed to use one or the other. And I'm like a scrapbook DM. I use everything and everything available to me. So if your player wants to use one of these, or if you want to allow some of these in your campaign or homebrew world, then there's going to be some slight tweaks that I would make, and I'm going to share with you. So let's go. So our first subclass is the Path of the Fractured, and it's sort of like the Hulk and Bruce Banner. You get some features while you're not raging, and some features while you are raging, and you literally swell up in size when you are raging. It's pretty good. There's nothing really bad, except the 14th level feature does require you to be dropped to 0 hit points, which, I mean, I've been knocked to 0 plenty of times as a barbarian, but at the same time, there's characters that have been never knocked to 0. And it does encourage unarmed combat, so if you want to play an unarmed barbarian, this one's for you. Our next barbarian is the Path of the Primal Spirit. Is our next barbarian. It is basically the Beastmaster Ranger, except you're expending rages and you add your rage instead of spellcasting ability. Other than that, it's literally the Beastmaster. I'm not the biggest when it comes to pet classes. I'm not really that fond of one. I think the best pet class was the Drake Warden, and that's because you got a dragon. I don't want to see my animals injured, and that's because I don't really like seeing animals injured. And the one cool thing is you can kind of like use your beast spirit as like a familiar at one point and see through its eyes. Well, actually, you can do more than see through its eyes. You can basically, your body goes limp and you become that stat block. Our next barbarian is the Path of the Wrathful Dead. The Path of the Wrathful Dead. This barbarian speaks with the dead. Well, not really. They don't get Speak with Dead. They do get spells at level 10, but Speak with Dead isn't one of them. Fair warning though, its level 6 feature has some names that could be triggering to players depending on their life experiences. Mandatory session 0. If you're interested in the Grimm Hollow campaign, maybe you're like a fan of 40k, because a lot of this stuff reminds me of 40k, and you wanted to play something grim and dark, if you don't have a session 0, don't even do it. Find a new table. Find someone else who wants to play, because you're probably not going to have a good time. So now we're going to get into Bards. Our first college is the College of Adventurers. Its abilities are going to seem very familiar because a lot of third-party makers make bards like this. Oh, you take other features from other subclasses, and that's your subclass. The only issue I see with this one is the Druid. When you take Druid, you don't actually gain Wild Shape, you gain Polymorph, but you don't retain your intelligence and stuff. You take on the beast stat block 100%. Other than that, it's a very good bard. And you can think about it like this: if you're going to take Eldritch Adept or Metamagic Adept, you don't have to, but you still could. It actually increased the amount of stuff you could do. Not the point. You could also Smite and gain, like, you know, a fighting style too. Okay, remember how I mentioned 40k? This next Bard subclass literally reminds me of the Harlequins. For those of you who don't know, they're like evil space clowns. And the College of Fools definitely gives me that vibe because, well, your pain is funny to them. They are insult to injury, pouring salt in the wound, your wounds. These bards, literally, just about everything is meant to affect the enemy in the worst way possible for them. which is awesome for you as a bard and your party. Best part, or at least one of my favorite parts, is that they get Dissonant Whispers and Vicious Mockery automatically prepared, which are like pretty go-to spells for a bard. So that means you could have a free spell slot and a free cantrip to pick something else. Next, we have the College of Requiem Bard. They're your Necromancer Bard. They're gonna get Animate Dead at level 6. The way they use their inspiration are to reduce damage or increase damage. They're just a Necromancer Bard, really. You can inspire your undead minions with, give them inspiration, but if you're giving it to them, I feel like that's a waste. You have a party that you can be giving inspiration out to. All right, time for clerics. We have up first our Eldritch Domain, and unfortunately, you do not get invocations. You do get a decent spell list and a random table to roll on. If you like random tables, then you're gonna love this cleric, because whenever you use like your level 3 feature, you can roll on a random table. When you use your Channel Divinity, you can make a group of enemies roll on this random table, and they don't want any of the effects, but you do. You're gonna gain like telepathy, and your mind can't be read against your will, resistance to psychic damage, and then later on, when you use like your at level 17, we use like your level 3 ability, the creature takes a bunch of damage. Our next cleric I've actually played, and that is the Inquisition Domain. This cleric has appeared on D&D Beyond before in the Grimm Hollow Players Pack. Now it's just been updated, and yeah, it is really fun when you are an anti-spellcaster, and very much like Warhammer dripping Inquisition vibe here. Like, you have your Witch Hunter Strike that adds a D8, and if the creature is concentrating on spell, it's 2d8 when you hit them. This subclass is all about punishing spellcasters and defending yourself from spellcasters. Finally, we have for our clerics the Purification Domain, and this is full-blown Sister of Battle. You have some features that when you use them help your allies, but your allies also take a wee bit of fire damage. Yeah, it's very much a Sister of Battle. Content warning, our next subclass is gonna talk about blood and blood magic, which was a level of brujeria that I didn't like initially, because, well, Matt Mercer and the folks at Critical Role seem to promote self-harm when they use blood magic. Yeah, I said it. But this does not. This is more like, think 11 from Stranger Things getting a nosebleed, putting that kind of stress on your body, not self-harm. I do not promote self-harm in any kind of way or condone it. If you think people hurt themselves or doing it for attention, you're partly not wrong. Most people who do self-harm is because they were neglected as a child, and the only way they know how to gain attention are from either acting out or hurting themselves. But the Circle of Blood Druid calls upon the Blood Moon and its abilities, so you wild shape, you don't actually wild shape, you expend your wild shape, and you have just different benefits. You're gonna gain benefits that allow you to do unarmed strikes in combat, extra HP, you'll be able to still help out your allies. You don't gain extra attack, but you do gain an expanded spell list with every spell except Dominate Person. Bloodbending is a new spell in this book. And instead of taking necrotic damage, like the Critical Role blood-related stuff, you reduce your hit point, your hit dice. So like you would on a short rest, you're just going to expend them here to do other features. Okay, the Circle of Entropy doesn't get an expanded spell list. However, they can, like, whenever they finish a long or short rest, choose Weapon Mastery, Smiting, or an always like Conjuration ability. And then when they wild shape, they're going to gain bonus to their AC, extra attack, and the ability to change out the weapon's damage type. Later on, they're going to be able to increase in size at level 10, and then at level 14, they're going to even increase their crit range and make up to 3 attacks. But then we have finally our Circle of Mutations. This is about wild shaping, and when you wild shape, you're very much like the Moon Druid, except because you're still taking on like your beast forms. However, your beast forms are gonna be mutated. When you like expend a spell slot, you gain points, and these points you can spend on different mutations. You can only have so many points at a time. They last until you're unconscious. They're kind of like 10 point HP in a way, where when you gain new ones, they don't stack. They vary from like growing in size, gaining a bonus to your AC, being able to speak with other animals and creatures. You'll have advantage on certain checks at higher levels, and then the ability to gain even more mutation points equal to your wisdom modifier, not just those from the spell slots you would spend. At 14th level, you're going to be doing extra damage on your attacks in beast shape, and you can actually mutate other beasts when you touch them. Alright, time for fighters. And if you saw my intro, remember it, you're going to know one of these is super mid, but it's not this one, because this one's the Bulwark Fighter. It is all about taunting your enemies and making it very enticing for them to hit you. Besides just giving out disadvantage, you kind of make yourself vulnerable to being attacked, but you're also going to have like the hit points to withstand it, because you're going to be able to gain temporary hit points equal to your fighter level plus your constitution. Then you're also going to be able to forgo those temporary hit points, and when you deal damage, you can decide to lower that temp HP to increase the damage dealt. So you're going to really be focusing like hurting your enemies, which is probably going to make them want to hit you, and then because they're having disadvantage against hitting your allies, they're definitely going to want to hit you. So as a tank, you're doing your job. Go you. I prefer playing like off tanks, sort of like a druid or cleric, as opposed to a full-on frontline tank, or a striker / skirmisher, somebody who gets in and out of combat, as opposed to a frontline fighter. But I never have any issues with fighters. I love them almost as much as this next fighter loves their substances. The Living Crucible fighter is about exactly what I just said. They take alchemy supplies and they make special potions for themselves. Only themselves. Does anyone else drink it, they become poisoned. Sort of like the Blood Hunter who makes potions, not so much like the Alchemist, because you get a list of options you get to choose from. They have no negatives. As you level up, you'll be able to consume more of these at a time. And as somebody who loves their substances, well, you're going to build a tolerance, so you're going to get like resistance to poison, an advantage on end of condition, and when you end the condition, you're going to gain temp HP. They range from like basically having the jump spell on you, to giving yourself advantage on checks and saves, to giving yourself blind sight, etc. and so on. All good stuff for a fighter to have. How I said this book replaces that book, this fighter is like the champion, the Night Watcher. If the theme of this calls out to you, honestly, I would say just play a Gloomstalker. Unfortunately, that's not an option if it's being played like that. However, this fighter will give you advantage on initiative rolls, and even do the thing that the Dance Bard does, where your party can gain advantage on the initiative rolls. You gain a few extra proficiencies and expertise. At higher levels, opportunity attacks will gain disadvantage against you, but you have to be in dim light or darkness. There's really nothing bad about this fighter, but nothing sounds like interesting or stand out that would make me want to play this fighter also. So that's why I said, that's why my intro was how it was. Now, these next monks are, when I read this, I'm like, oh my god, these are rogue traders. These are planetary governors. These are the hierarchy and the aristocrats of the Warhammer universe. Warrior of the Laden Crown monk has some psionics type of thing. Because your reach increases by 5 feet, you'll be able to push people. You do gain psionic abilities, I think Invisible Mage Hand, and certain spells. You can spend focus points on those spells. And those focus points are actually not costly. They're like of the spell's level. So Shatter is going to cost you 2 focus points. But something like Protection from Good and Evil is going to cost you 1. On top of focus points, this monk's going to gain something called pressure points. When you hit people with unarmed strike, they gain points over time. And then afterwards, you can choose to just go like that. They're going to take all that damage. Honestly, if you've seen solo leveling, and when he fought Biro, that little scene where he's like, bop, 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 and then you see Biro just in the air taking it, like you see the impact hits afterwards, it's sort of like that. So our next monk, the Warrior of Pride, is all about their pride and retaliation when you hurt them or their pride. However, a lot of their features required you to be bloodied, or at least get better when you're bloodied. Like you'll be able to add your wisdom modifier to the 2 on top of your dex to your unarmed strikes once you're bloodied though. You're gonna gain, like whenever you spend a focus point, you can gain temp HP equal to your wisdom modifier, which isn't a lot, but if you're bloodied, you gain double. Cool thing though is at level 17, any reduction to your hit points, you can consider yourself bloodied. So it's like, oh, now finally everything synergizes to a point where it's like, I don't actually have to be bloodied to gain the better benefits from my subclass. Our next month is the Warrior of Regret. This is your family did some bad stuff, and now you have to live with the outcome of the bad stuff your family did. Okay, the Warrior of Regret gains an ability that is a once per turn ability and cost a focus point. So it only lasts for 6 seconds or to the end, start of your next turn. You can summon the shadow and you'll be able to like attack from its location, move it around. It's very expensive. Thankfully, not all of your abilities are like tied to this, and at level and your final ability is to allow it to last for 10 minutes. I would fix this to make it last a minute. The lack of synergy between like some of their abilities and then just the cost of that first ability is ridiculous. Well, not the cost, but the time is ridiculous. Next, we have our Chaos Space Marines, Paladins. And well, Papa Nurgel loves this Oath of Pestilence because they're all about spreading disease when you get too close to them, and even has the ability to strip immunity and resistance. Well, it's a necrotic damage at least. Your aura is going to give disadvantage to enemies. You have a ability that triggers when you die, and typically I don't like these abilities, but this one's so fun and flavorful. You explode. You explode into like a toxic disgustingness all over people. And normally I say a paladin without bad features is like S tier. Their level 20 god mode isn't really that crazy, and one of their feature stoves require you to die. It's still fun and flavorful. And then we have our Oath of Slaughter, which just makes me want to yell. Well, actually, one of their tenets is revel in the bloodshed, whether friend or foe. If that's not Corn cares not from where the blood is flowing. Blood for the blood gods, skulls for the skull throne. I don't know what is. They go into a frenzy, and it's sort of like the Barbarians' Rage, where they have to keep it going by either attacking, forcing an enemy to make a save, or if they're just bloodied, because we care not from where the blood flows, if it's yours, a friend's, or an enemy's. Aura ability at level 7, Bloodthirst. Aura is going to allow allies, when they're bloodied and next to you, to increase their damage. And when a creature becomes bloodied, you can take your reaction to just move up to half your speed and start pounding on them even more. And this Paladin's level 20 ability does put them in the S tier of just sheer damage. Now our next Paladin, our Oath of Zeal. When you look at the artwork, you think Black Templar, but once you get to that level 10 ability, you're like, oh, you're a Dark Angel. Sorry, a lot of 40k references here, but this reminds me, this setting, I love this setting, but I also love 40k, and well, you can see where they intersect. There we go, words. Okay, but our Oath of Zeal is sort of like our Oath of Vengeance. With their Mark of the Heretic, it's going to increase their crit range. They get Hunter's Mark on their spell list, which, why not just make a new spell called like literally, they have a thing called Mark of the Heretic. That could have just been a new spell similar to Hunter's Mark instead of taking the Ranger's thing. But yeah, their level 15th ability, I think I said 10 earlier, is going to let them have Zone of Truth always prepared. And when your enemy passes their check on Zone of Truth or their save, they take psychic damage until they fail. So it's like you're just interrogating them, which is why I mentioned Blood Angels. Those of you who know, you know. Rangers. It's always tough talking about Ranger subclasses after Paladin subclasses. Rangers are like conceptually my favorite class. I think Tasha's did it perfectly. This first ranger, the Green Reaper, this ranger is gonna make you expend spell slots left and right. Gives you Hunter's Mark a number of times for free without expending a spell slot. I hope you like that, because starting at level 3 and you only have, what, 4 spell slots at that level? We'll check. You have 3 spell slots at that level. And yeah, you're gonna be expending them on different features. This ranger is about poison damage, and you literally have to expend a spell slot to get around poison resistance. You have to expend even higher level spell slots to get past immunity, but you do bring the pain. Like, you definitely bring the pain. You're going to be doing D4, then 2d4 poison damage. You'll be able to add D6 poison damage on top of that later on. You'll be able to change your poison damage to acid or necrotic. I choose acid every time, unless you're going against the Black Dragon. You're also going to be able to spend these spell slots on very debilitating effects, sort of like the Rogue's Cunning Strikes abilities. Not bad, just very costly on the spell slots. A fix I would do is allow you to spend the thing that gives you Hunter's Mark for free a bunch of times. Like, spend 1 to 2 to 3, 4 uses of that on these instead of spell slots. Same thing with our next subclass, which is the Primordial Archer. Same issues as the Arcane Archer. So I would honestly just change this in my campaigns to the Primordial Sniper and allow you to use any ranged weapon. This ranger is all about elemental damage. Wisdom modifier times per day. You can infuse your ranged weapon. It says bow or longbow, which is pretty sad considering all the ranged weapons that are introduced in this book. You're also going to gain the ability to use a herbalism kit, sort of like a healer's kit, which is cool. However, a lot of these classes that give you kits don't say if you already have that, you can swap it with another one, or you gain expertise in it, which it's hard to gain expertise in a tool unless you're an artificer or a rogue with thieves tools. However, not every player knows exactly what they're going to play from level 1. I'm that player who knows exactly what they're going to play and has their entire build plotted, but not everyone does. Some people just go with the flow. So if they already had herbalism kit, I mean, on D&D Beyond, when something gives you a new proficiency, it overrides your other one to free it up for something else typically. So that you could just do that. But if you're not playing on D&D Beyond and you have this book physically at your table, then talk to your DM. DMs remember this, right? But just like the Arcane Archer, you're gonna gain special shots from, like, Arcing Shot is probably the best one. It does 2d6, doesn't require a saving throw. The rest require saving throws. They do half damage on a success, or on a successful save, which is still good. Half damage is always good. The only downside is that these require a spell slot. You'd expend a spell slot, but you get this at level 11, and you're gonna have 10 spell slots at that point. So this isn't bad because you can do this once per turn. And the higher the spell slot, these are your smites, because they do 2d6. Plus, remember earlier, you're already doing 1d6 damage, extra damage on your weapons. So this can really rank up the damage. This one I'm not too upset with about expending spell slots because it's once per turn and you have 10 at this level. But if you feel like it's too expensive, then don't let them upscale and just let them expend uses of their Hunter's Mark, favored enemy, favored foe, whatever it's called. Then we have the Vermin Lord, which at first I thought was just another pet class ranger, but you are a pet class ranger at level 3. Once you get to level 5, you're a Pokemon trainer, because your swarm, you summon a swarm, or you can have multiple swarms attack as your bonus action, but at level 3 you only have one, and it says your swarm can attack twice. So if you're a ranger dual wielding with a Nick weapon, you could be making 1-2 attacks and then make your swarm make 2 attacks. At level 5, you'll be making 3 attacks and have each swarm making an attack. And because you expend spell slots on swarms to summon a swarm, so at 5th level you could have 5 swarms, which would be 3 attacks from yourself and then 5 attacks from your swarm, which are swarms, which is 8 attacks in total. Pretty awesome. You're also going to gain resistance to poison because of your plague swarm and spread the poison condition on people. Once again, Papa Nurgel loves this book. Rogues and the Highwayman Rogue, or Highway Rider, which literally makes me think of Fable. This rogue gets proficiency with black powder pistols or weaponry, which right off the back is like Ranger can only use longbow or shortbow, can't even use the composite bow. Rogue, give them guns. They're also going to get fine steed, so a lot of this rogue's abilities either work on you or work on you and your steed while you're mounted. Like your hair trigger ability, which kicks off at the start of combat. You can either move or you can move your mount. When you have an ability that gives you temporary hit points later, it can also apply to your mount. If your fine steed moves at least 20 feet, you don't need advantage on sneak attack or an ally. You can just, while you're riding your horse, be like bang, 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 which is pretty cool. Actually, it's really cool. Just like our Inquisition domain, the Misfortune Bringer Rogue has appeared before in the Grimm Hollow Players Pack, and it's sort of the same. It's no different than it was before. You're going to gain Jinx points, and you can spend those on different things. You're going to have an Evil Eye, which is sort of like the Inquisitive Rogue's ability to you make a creature do a save, and then you have sneak attack against them. Except yours lasts for a minute instead of having to do it every round as a bonus action. You still have to do it as a bonus action, but just once for that minute. Your level 9 ability is very situational, and it's the only way to regain spent Jinx points. Your level 13 ability, you can expend 3 Jinx points to cast Bestow Curse. 3 Jinx points is a lot, because you don't gain that many. And it's not like the Psy Warrior. Okay, no, that's the fighter. The Psionic Rogue and Fighter that have a number of Psionic points equal to twice their proficiency bonus. I think if you got that, you'd be better off, but you don't. You have like 4 of these or 6 of these. Yeah, you have 4 of these and end with 6 total. I would just do my fix would be exactly what I just said. You have a number of these equal to double your proficiency bonus, so you have 12 towards the end, because they're not that crazy. A lot of these also use your reaction, which is very valuable to a rogue as well, and the cost of these range from 1 Jinx point to 3 double proficiency bonus, and I think you're all set with this one. Finally, for our rogues, we have the Sanguine Thief, which is our Arcane Trickster. You gain your 3rd caster. You use the wizard spell list. This rogue is going to get a pool of dice, which are d8s. They can't be used on damage. Instead, they're used in replacing your hit points for your Sanguimancy spells and Sanguimancy ability, blood magic abilities. The amounts you get are equal to the amount of your sneak attack dice. So at level 3, you'll have 2 of them. Level 5, you'll have 3 of them. And so when you cast Sanguimancy spells, you have to expend hit dice. Instead, you can expend some of these pool of dice. You can also expend them on other abilities. You have a way to recoup these too. Like when you hit a creature with a sneak attack, you get 1 back. Or instead of getting 1 back, you can choose to do more damage equal to the dice you would have gotten back. You'll be able to infuse daggers with blood and use them as arcane focuses and even deal more damage with them as your crit. So this is actually a really cool rogue. Yeah, like I said, this book has changed my opinion on blood magic overall. We're gonna move on to our sorcerers, and possibly the most powerful sorcerer I've ever seen if you have downtime. And if you don't, it's a pretty powerful sorcerer. The Apocalypse Sorcery is about using meta magic and infusing that meta magic in spell scrolls. These spell scrolls only last till your next long rest. Well, the meta magic part of them. The spell's always there. And the thing about 2024 rules, or the revised rules, you can quicken Fireball, not use that until later on, and then Fireball on a bonus action, and because you didn't expend a spell slot, Fireball as an action. Yeah, that's why I said this is possibly the strongest sorcerer I've seen, and it is so good. And even if you don't have time to make spell scrolls, you can always make a couple of spell scrolls in a long rest. The ones that you make during a long rest don't last, they fade away, but it's still super powerful. And just the level 6 feature alone, bear witness me. Then we have Haunted Sorcery. You're gonna gain Find Familiar, and more importantly, your familiar is gonna take on the Spectre stat block, which can do a bunch of extra stuff. It's like your pet class, but later on, this pet of yours can actually possess other people too and take full control of their body. It's super cool, And well, like I said, at higher levels, super powerful because you're just going to be able to control an NPC like all the time as your specter inhabits their body. It doesn't really kick off until level 6 because that's when you can command your specter as a bonus action to use its life drain attack. Whereas before you would have to use your action. And then we have a Wretched Bloodline sorcery. This sorcerer doesn't gain an expanded spell list. Instead, you're always going to have like protection from good and evil. Later on, you're always going to have bestow curse. You can pass out disadvantage left and right. And at higher levels, you're going to be able to summon a creature, whether that's a succubus, ghost, barb devil, so on and so forth. I think it's the weakest out of the 3. Okay, our warlocks. The first one is the Coven. You made your patrons are, Coven of Hags, and this warlock does not synergize with itself at all. Its level 6 feature gives you an ability that kicks off illusions. However, the only illusion spell on your expanded spell is Phantasmal Killer, and you do gain minor illusion as well, but that's a cantrip and is very limited as to what it can do. Patron doesn't really play well with itself. It's like it's all over the place and doesn't have any synergies. The first vampire patron, on the other hand, fits in just about any campaign because Curse of Strahd, Grimm Hollow, Dungeon Dudes, Cobalt Press, they all have their version of who the first vampire was. And in this case, it was your patron. Basically, as you level up, you're going to gain more vampiric abilities from like draining attack, like life drain attacks, biting, transforming into a wolf, bat, or rat, but maintaining your abilities. At higher levels, you're even going to gain regeneration. Then our Parasite Patron, this is going to let you siphon spells, so if you succeed, that creature can no longer cast that spell, but you now know it. You're also going to gain a bonus action transformation that gives you a slew of abilities, advantage on initiative, dominate person, always prepared. And one of my second favorite abilities besides the Death Burst of the Paladin is the Death of this Warlock. Yeah, having a feature that kicks off when you die isn't that good. However, this one, you turn into a larva, and the larva then goes into someone else and can possess them, and you come back to life. We're down to the wizards now. And our first one is the Demonologist. This is our warlock-themed wizard. They have like either the Fiend or the Celestial Patron, and you have actually an expanded spell list. You can choose between Seraph or Fiend. As like you take a long rest, you gain Eldritch Invocations, 1 at the start, and then 2 as you level up. Unfortunately, in D&D Beyond, it's not actually set up to do this. You're going to gain the ability to switch between Seraph and Fiend back and forth later on at higher levels. So you can swap that spell list when you need it from one to the other, from Radiant to Necrotic abilities. It's very good. Subclass. Then we have our Plague Doctor, literally just called Plague Doctor. This one is about potion crafting, healing allies and hurting foes, because we all know the difference between medicine and poison is the dose. So, but yeah, you're always gonna be able to make like a basic potion or a vial of toxin, which potion you can give to an ally, toxin you throw at an enemy, like throw Baldur's Gate 3 style, it explodes in the ground and affects people. And at higher level, these go from D8s to 2D8 space, which means there's at least synergy here, right? I'm looking at you, Warlock of the Coven. And then we have our Blood Magic Wizard, which is so much better than the Critical Role Blood Magic Wizard because you don't have to hurt yourself. Matt Mercer, condoning self-harm. Anyway, I don't actually know if the Critical Role cast condones self-harm, but you can clip that if you want. It'd be funny. Just like our rogue, you're going to get a pool of dice that you don't actually expend your hit points on for casting these Sanguimancy spells. In fact, at level 6, you're kind of going to be like the Draconic Sorcerer and gain just an extra hit point per level. So you gain 6 right at level 6 and then 1 right after that, every level after that. So 20 additional hit points by the time you're level 20. This is not a squishy wizard. You'll be able to expend some of these Sanguimancy dice on empowering your spells. You know, standard rules apply. If it's multiple attacks, like from Scorching Ray, you can only choose one of them. That gains the power up. However, that's still not bad. This is a pretty good wizard. Like I said, this book changed my mind on blood magic, guys. And that is all of the subclasses here. Like I said, just a brief overview. Not quite giving them tiers, but as you can hear, we have at least a D tier monk or C D tier monk, C D tier warlock, some S tier paladins, a bunch of stuff ranging from A to C, like there's nothing bad about the fighter. It just feels mid-tier in my heart. Stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. My name's been Wes. Where's the fun? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like what I do for more D&D, Warhammer, and other tabletop games. Well, I'll see you next time. Bye.